Bye. My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our DUK Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Welcome back to another episode of DUK Dogs, everybody. I'm your host, Josh Miller. And let's be sure to do a rundown here and thank our great sponsors. So thank you to Eukanuba. Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020 is the blend of food that I feed my dogs here at the kennel and my dogs personally as I'm on the road and all year long. So what we're seeing in the field is we're seeing, the energy being sustained. We're seeing fantastic recovery times, which is a big deal on these big hunts. It is a great high quality food. So if you're looking for a great blend to put your four-legged hunting partner, I would highly recommend it. Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020. Also, thank you to Gun Dog Supply. Gun Dog Supply is your one-stop shop for all of your hunting and training needs for your four-legged hunting partner. So go check them out. Make sure to stock up early and get what you need and get prepared here for the season. So www.gundogsupply.com. Also, thank you to Kent Cartridge. Kent is the shotgun shell that I've been shooting now for a number of years. I'm continuing to shoot, and I'll tell you there are two big things here. One, it's a great product, and two, they're great people. So I'd highly, highly recommend Kent Cartridge as you're looking for shotgun shells, not only for your hunting needs, but they also have blanks, which is very unique. So blanks for your training needs. So go check them out at Kent. Also, thank you to Sitka Gear. Sitka Gear is your premium option for all of your clothing needs. I am head to toe, as I usually am, in Sitka. And this morning was a great example. I'll go into that here in a little bit, but it was very cold and I was very comfortable. So go check it out, www.sitkagear.com. Also, thank you to Lucky Duck. Lucky Duck is your 5-star crash test rated kennel, both in the intermediate and in the large size. So no matter what size your dog is, you can be sure that they're traveling as safe as possible. Also, be sure as we go into these cooler and colder months that you go check out the kennel cover, because the kennel cover will help keep your dog warm as you travel. Go check them out, www.luckyduck.com. And last but not least, thank you to Retriever Roadmap. Retriever Roadmap is your premium option for online training at home. So if you're working with your dog at home, just looking for some guidance, looking for a program to follow, Retriever Roadmap is the place for you. So go check out their video library, step-by-step instruction, number of different dogs, all the way from picking out your puppy through advanced training, www.retrieverroadmap.com. All right, everybody. So I'm going to recap this morning's hunt a little bit here, and then I have a little bit of a story that I'm going to tell you guys, and I'm hoping that it will be a great mental check for a lot of you out there. And I think from some of the messages that I'm kind of receiving and reading, I think it's needed. I think this part of the year is a really good mental check, mental check time, self-check time. And so I have a story that I don't believe I've ever told on here, but I think it's an impactful one. It's certainly an impactful one for me. And I'm hoping that it will be that for you as well. So stay tuned for that. But let's get into the hunt this morning. So here in Wisconsin, I'm kind of going through what I call the grind of it's just Wisconsin waterfalling. Like, yeah, we can shoot honkers, but ducks can be very tough. And you just get certain days you're just like, you know what, I just got to go out. And this is one of those mornings. So it was our first snowfall of the year. It was about 30 degrees. And you know how it is, especially in the north, it's really weird, okay? In the north, when it snows and it's rainy and it's windy and it's junky out, that's when we're like, oh my gosh, it's ducky weather. Down south, now snow, they love snow down south too. Again, if you're from the south, you're like, you're completely wrong on that. Ping me, let me know. But I'm talking generally speaking from the guys that I hunt with. I have a lot of good friends, especially Joey and Nick down in Arkansas, and they just love sunshine, bluebird days, add some wind in there, and that's a ducky day. Like, I know guys that are down south that if it's cloudy and rainy, like, they're not even going out. And up here we're like, that's a ducky day. So this was as ducky of a day as you could think of. First snowfall of the year, mixing some wind in there. The wind wasn't crazy, but it was definitely there. And it just felt like a ducky day. So what we did is we kind of, threw a little bit of a Hail Mary because we didn't scout. So we didn't know for sure. But we had a pond that a good friend of mine named Kelly, he owns. And it's been a good producer in the past. We're like, you know what? Let's just go. Let's just go out. In the past, we've shot wood ducks there early, but a lot of mallards here, later on as the season goes. That's fully what I was expecting is, at least a few volleys of mallards. And I brought Bud. So Bud has not got to really hunt at all yet this year because it seems like every time I'm leaving on a hunt, he needs to stay back for breeding purposes. So got to make those puppies. That's one of your roles here as a part of the team. So he just hasn't got to go. So I got to bring him out. Got to bring him on one of his first hunts of the year, and he was fantastic as always. Completely steady, quiet, engaged in the hunt. We saw one duck. We killed one duck, but retrieved one duck. The weird thing is that one duck was a teal. Strange, because usually our teal are out of here, a month and a half ago. Certainly not when it's 30 degrees and snowing. And a little blue winger just decided to zip in. So that was the extent of our morning. But one of the things that these mornings, two things that these types of mornings or these types of hunts kind of remind me of. The first thing, I know this is a little strange, the first thing it reminds me of is why. Like, why am I there? Because it's not about pulling the trigger. It is about watching the dog work. It is about being there for them. And of course, you need ducks for that. But it's hard to remind yourself of that when you're in the chaos of it. When you're on those banger hunts, it's hard to press pause and be like, hey, let's just appreciate this, right? Like, very few of us, myself included, have a hard time remembering to do that in the moment. But on these very slow hunts, it's easier to reflect on it. So as I'm sitting there, I'm with a couple of very good friends. We're sitting there laughing, telling jokes, showing photos and videos of our kids. Like, that's why. We got to have some great friendship time, some great fellowship. That's what it's about, right? Now, from a dog standpoint, what these types of hunts tend to remind me of is the little things and why I need to appreciate it. And as as I sit here right now, I don't know if you could hear that in the background, a big group of honkers and mallards just lit right on the shoreline of the lake here. So I always do these recordings, or most of the time I do these recordings at our little cabin. And I'm literally, no joke, I'm watching mallards and honkers outside this window right now, when all morning I sat there and just watched the snowfall. So classic. But getting back to the dog piece of it, the little things, okay? So why do these hunts allow me to appreciate the little things? Well, they allow me to appreciate the little things mainly because, again, I have the time to sit back and appreciate it, right? Just take that breath, soak it all in. Because here's the reality. Bud got to retrieve one duck today. But the rest of the time, he sat there, he was quiet, He was calm. He was under control. Quite frankly, forgot he was there half the time. That's how well-mannered he was. And I believe, and this is why, especially through Retriever Roadmap, I put such an emphasis on the obedience part of it. As a waterfall dog, that is what your dog is going to do the majority of the time, right? Sit, be still. So you could have the dog that you consider the most driven dog in the world, and oh my gosh, he likes to work. But if he is not calm and quiet like that, especially during the slow times when everyone's probably a little frustrated that the day's not going better, that amplifies frustration. That is not fun. That's the little thing to appreciate. So when you're sitting there and you're like, gosh, I wish there were birds. Gosh, I wish stuff was going on. Gosh, I wish it wasn't. Oh, well, my dog is sitting here calm and quiet and under control. We worked all year on that. That's a win. That's a little thing to appreciate. It's funny that sometimes these poor hunts, when in regards to the bird numbers, kind of open your eyes to some other things that you're blinded to otherwise. That's good stuff. So yeah, less than stellar hunt this morning. But here's the other thing that I did on this hunt. So I consider myself working essentially all the time I'm on any type of a waterfowl or upland hunt. I'm working. Don't shoot the majority of time because I'm trying to capture your content for social channels. I'm working from a dog standpoint because this is what we do. So I want you to be on point, right? So it's a very big focal point of mine. So actually being there and pulling the trigger is not only is it secondary, but it's really not even on my radar unless the right situation is there. Okay, so I'm working. So as I'm working, especially with it being today's Friday, I'm on my phone and I'm catching up on, whether it's Instagram messages or Retriever Roadmap, forum questions or private group messages, and, just kind of keeping that stuff going. And a few Instagram messages, first off, you'd probably be shocked at the number of Instagram messages that I get daily. Okay, I love it. I think it's great. I've been able to keep in touch with a lot of people, doing that. I love it. But that's why during downtime, like this morning, I have to be playing catch up on that stuff because, quite frankly, I don't have time that I can just dedicate and say, hey, for the next 2 hours, I'm going to sit here and answer Instagram messages. So I try to, pick at it while I can. And a lot of questions regarding, first couple hunts, a lot of questions regarding what happens when, things don't go right, or when my dog starts breaking, or when my dog doesn't pick up that first goose, or doesn't, there was a number, those last two are very specific, questions that came through. Now, a lot of the questions, I would, if you're struggling, this is my my selfless plug here. You do need to go check out Retriever Roadmap, because this answers majority of the questions that I get are answered in detail in video format, sometimes with numerous different dogs in different situations through the program. So if you're having issues, go check it out because it will help you. That's one. But two, as I'm looking at all these, I think there's a need to talk about your mental game. Okay. And why is that? Is because you are the coach. Okay, so one thing that I had talked about, I'm going to get into a quick story here in a second, but one thing that I had told one of the individuals that he had talked about, that his dog went out to that first goose and didn't pick it up right away. Okay, and he's like, it was super frustrating. I had taken I can't remember what the breed of dog was. I want to say it was a golden retriever, but I don't know that for sure. Anyway, he said that, he had kind of done what I had talked about on one of these podcasts. He had taken a dead goose that they had shot from a previous hunt, brought it home, did some retrieves, and the dog, over time, got good at it, was picking up that bird, and for whatever reason went to the hunt, didn't want to pick it up. Okay, so there's a number of things we can do to fix this, but it's likely a confidence thing, right? There's a lot more emotion that goes into a hunt. Oftentimes what I see is handlers getting flustered because they're in front of their buddies. They want, whether you are open about this or secret about it, you want your dog to perform in front of your buddies, especially if you're the dog guy of the group. It's kind of an important deal. And so it's something that people put extra stress on them. So my response was, how did you respond to that? And he's like, well, it was kind of tough to respond because we had more birds coming and I was trying to, get her to hurry up and she just wasn't figuring out. Okay. So right there, my follow-up was, so do you think that you were emotional, right? You were flustered, you were frustrated, because what ended up happening through his story is she ended up just running back to him without the bird. And he's like, yeah, I definitely did. But I just don't understand why this was different than in the backyard. Okay. So, I want you to, again, if you guys have followed me for any amount of time, I'm a big sports guy. So have you ever thought about why so MLB playoffs are going on right now? You ever looked at a skipper in the dugout and thought, gosh, like that the player just hit a home run and they just went ahead. The whole team's jumping for joy and he's stone-faced. Like, why? Okay. Or that was a terrible call. Why isn't the coach jumping up and down and screaming about stuff, right? Why does Bill Belichick for the New England Patriots, why is he always stone-faced? Always, Nick Saban for Alabama, like very stone-faced, right? Like not even non-emotional in interviews. He's coming off the field. We have to play better. Coming off the field, hey, you guys are up by 6 touchdowns. What are you going to do different? Well, we have some things we could work on, right? Like very level, because emotions are easy to be fed off of, both by people and certainly with dogs, right? So you're a player on a coach team that your coach loses their mind when something goes wrong or you do something bad. Okay. You are, for the vast majority of people, you are going to start walking on eggshells. You're going to be so nervous to screw up that you are actually going to hold yourself back from doing something right. Okay. Emotions are a really tough thing to play for a lot of people, and it's a very tough thing to read for a lot of people. So being level is very important. That's why one of the things I talk about in Retriever Roadmap is when you are handling, try to keep everything the same voice inflection, right? Because how many dogs do you know that when you say, Duke, come, they don't listen. And that's Duke, come, they don't listen. Duke, come, they don't listen. And finally, you're like, Duke, come here. And he's like, oh, now we'll listen, right? It's because of the emotion. Like you didn't respect anything up to that point, because up to that point you followed through, right? So emotion, if you can keep everything on the level, Duke, come means the same as Duke, come. You don't have to change that. Now I lowered my voice and I was hoping I didn't blow your ears out in either your AirPods or your car. So emotions are all your mental game. Okay. And so I want to tell you a quick story about my mental game and an epiphany that I had through my life that I still use to this day. Okay. So this is called the Stoplight. Okay. So I'm going to tell you about the Stoplight. So this was early in my college career. So I was a collegiate baseball player. At this time, I would have been a freshman. And I felt like I was pretty awesome, right? I felt like opening day, I was the only freshman in the lineup. I felt like I was at the peak of my, maybe not at the time, maybe I didn't think it was the peak, but I felt like I was at a peak of my athletic ability. I loved playing in front of big crowds. I loved being, the young kid that, was in the game. Like I loved all this stuff and I fed off that. I also struggled with my emotions. And when I say my emotions ran me in a lot of cases. Okay, now when I look back into high school, it's probably even worse. So the college experience that I have was I was playing center field. This was one of the first games of the year, and um, there was a line drive hit at me. Now, I felt like I was very rangy in the outfield. Right, I could cover a lot of ground. Loved making diving catches. Loved making those plays that nobody thought could be made. Loved that part of it. But I read this ball very, very poorly. Okay, so if you've ever played outfield, you know what I'm talking about, right? That line drive is a hard one to judge because it's hard to get that depth perception, and you don't know how hard it's hit, especially when it's coming right at you. So I did what I shouldn't have done, which my first movements were in instead of back to read. First movements were in. A couple steps into it, I watched that ball zinging over my head, going way faster than I thought, carrying way farther than I thought, and immediately was embarrassed. This was on our home field. Immediately embarrassed. And so what I did was I jogged, and I think jogging is probably a little bit of a stretch. But I jogged back to the fence to get that ball. Now, in my head at the time, again, embarrassed, I'm thinking like I've got to look cool. I've got to like look like I'm upset about this. I've got to whatever, right? And after that inning, I came back, and we had one of our assistant coaches that was really, really good, and he got in my face, and he's like, "What?" I'm not going to use the same language he used, but what in the world was that? And I remember I just looked down and almost like trying to brush him off. And he like grabbed me and goes, "I'll tell you what." He goes, "When that kind of stuff happens to Josh Miller, you better save your ticket stub because it won't happen again." Like, and he's trying to motivate me, right? I then went to bat. Vividly remember swinging at a pitch I had no business swinging at, popping up the pitcher. And it was the next inning I got pulled, and I had to sit down. And this, again, this whole thing was very embarrassing to me. Now, hit to my ego for sure, right? But embarrassing nonetheless. So fast forward maybe a week or so, and one of the things that I loved, ended up loving, hated it at the time, was we would have a physical practice, and then we would have mental practice. So we would actually have practices around your mental side of the game. Because the belief by the coaching staff, which is 100% true, is that baseball, as is, I think you could argue, any sport out there, it is as much mental as it is physical. You can have all the physical talent in the world, but if your mental side isn't there, you are not going to be successful, or at least you're not going to ever play to the top, the best of your ability. So, at the time, I was really, like, before this point, this bad game I just told you about, I was not bought into the mental practices at all. I would sit in that room, which we sat at desks. It was like it was a classroom. College classroom is where these mental practices were held, and I remember sitting there thinking, like, I'd rather be hitting BP bombs or like doing something on the field. I just felt like it was such a waste of time. I drug myself to it every time. But after this poor game, my head coach pulled me into his office, and we sat down, and he said, "Do you know why I sat you down?" And I said, yeah, because I wasn't playing well. And he said, no, it's because you were mentally out of the game. And when you are mentally out of the game, you're going to do nothing but hurt yourself, hurt your teammates, and hurt this team. So you need to focus on your mental game. You need to get better at this. Okay. So actually, I had a really good friend of mine named Tyler. TK is what we called him. And TK was a senior when I was a freshman. And we had a lot of the same interests. And I remember when I was a freshman coming into it, I just like TK was like the guy that I wanted to kind of hang out with. But I'm the freshman, of course. We're getting hazed, we're getting kind of bullied around, all that stuff that is normal, nothing crazy. But TK was a muskie fisherman, which I was. He was a waterfowl hunter, which obviously I was. And I remember early on, before we knew each other, it was like, I'd be like, oh, like, you been on musky fishing at all? And he'd be like, yep. Like, did not want to talk to me at all. He ended up probably being my absolute best friend that I had during school. So we ended up being fantastic friends. But I remember like being this like new kid on the block, like wanting so bad for the older kid to like me. Anyway, TK, Tyler, got with me. It was after that meeting. It's like, what do you have to say? And so I told him, fully expecting him to be like, like whatever, dude, just don't even worry about it. And he was like, you should. You really should take that seriously. And I don't know why. Like when Coach told me, I was like, again, I have an ego at this time, right? I'm pretty full of myself. When Tyler told me, I was like, okay, I have to. So I go into the next mental meeting, mental practice, and it was one of the most impactful talks I've ever listened to. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about this talk. So we go, we come into the classroom, sit down, and there's a stoplight on the whiteboard. Okay, and that's probably one of the reasons I'm a big whiteboard guy too, just because it illustrates things for me. But if you can picture a stoplight, 3 lights, right? So the top one is going to be red, the middle one is going to be yellow, and the bottom one is going to be green. Okay, so red, yellow, green. And when we came in that day, one of the coaches that, again, he gave just a fantastic presentation on this. He said, I think some of you are not grasping the importance of your mental game. And so I want to kind of illustrate this for you and break it down. And I knew 100% he was talking right to me. And if he wasn't, it felt like it, which was great. So I buy into this talk pretty early. So he starts going and goes, okay, so your mental game, when you show up to the park, whether this is for practice, whether this is for a game, he's like, we're going to focus on games here. When you show up to the game, you need to keep yourself in the green. For as long of that game as you can, you need to be in the green. Okay, so let's go through what a game could look like. You show up, you're in the green. If you don't show up to the park in the green, you already have issues. Okay, you need to find a way to show up, to walk into the locker room, to walk onto that field in the green. I don't care if your girlfriend just had a fight with you. I don't care if you didn't make it to the lunch hall on time and you're hungry. I don't care if you have an exam that's breathing down your neck that you've been procrastinating for. You need to be present, and you need to want to be there, and you need to be in the right state of mind. You need to be in the green when you walk onto that field. That's the first battle. So you're into the game starts rolling, and naturally positive or negative things are going to happen, right? So you get a hit, okay? You make a great play in the field, right? All that stuff is going to make you feel great, and it's going to keep you in the green. When you're playing well, you're not having to worry about keeping your emotion in check here, okay? But when things start going wrong, you need to be conscious about it, and you need to be intentional about bringing yourself back into the green, because here's what happens. Now, he took a pen, and he put it right in that green light, and he said, what's going to happen is as the game goes on and you're spiraling, right? He used the spiral as like the duration of the game, okay? So those good things are happening. You're spiraling in the green, right? In the green. You think about, line going around in the green as he's drawing. He said, what happens when you get called out on a strike three that you didn't think was a strike? Okay, now you're kind of starting to come out of that green, right? So then you go out in the field and you boot a ball. Now you're really starting to spiral out, right? And now, before you know it, you find yourself in the yellow. Okay, so remember, we start in the green. As you spiral around and that spiral starts getting bigger, you get into that yellow light, right, which is the next light. So yellow light. He said this is the most important light on this stoplight, because this is where you need to recognize that you are starting to lose control of your emotions. Your emotions are running you, not you running them. Because when you're in the yellow, this is choice time. You can choose to make choices that bring you back in the green. But if you can't identify that you're in the yellow, your emotions are going to continue to run you. So you got called out on that strike three. You go in the field, you boot a ball, you're in the yellow, you're upset, you're frustrated, you're embarrassed, you don't recognize it, you don't check in with yourself. What happens? All of a sudden you're late on the step on the next ball, or you miss the cutoff because you're trying to overthrow everything to compensate of the negative stuff you just did. Or now you're up to bat and you're flustered and you swing at pitches that you shouldn't be swinging at, right? And what happens? You continue to spiral out of control. So now in the yellow, when you haven't caught it, you continue to spiral, and you get into the red. Once you're in the red, there's no coming back. There's not enough time in the game for you to come back. And the best thing that you can do in that situation is sit down. That, to me, that story, it's incredibly impactful to me. It was impactful for the rest of my athletic career. It is impactful to my training sessions, and it is impactful to my everyday life. I look at every day when I get up as a stoplight. If I'm getting out of bed and I'm not in the green, something's already wrong. Find a way to wake up in the green. And then for the rest of the day, no matter what happens, I'm trying to identify when I get into the yellow so I can bring myself back into the green. It's even more impactful for me now because I have little kiddos that are coming home, and I'm going to spend my late afternoon, evening with them. If work has got me into the red, I'm going to lose very valuable time with them, and I'm probably better off not even being around them because I'm so upset. If I can bring myself back in the green, every time they come home, they know what dad they're coming home to. That is a mental challenge that I take on every single day. Okay, let's relate this to a training session. Okay, training session. When things are going right, everything's great, right? You're in the green. Everything's great. But then all of a sudden, they challenge you on heel, or they blow off a whistle, or they're fighting you on a cast, or you know your dog. Think about it right now. What's the thing that sets you off? What's the thing that your dog does that you're like, you son of a gun? Okay. That is when you go into your yellow. Now, some of us go from green to yellow to red quicker than others. But we all have to learn to identify when we are in the yellow. It's very, very important. You will have a better relationship with your family members. You'll have a better relationship with your kids, with your wife, with your dog, with your peers, with your boss, with your employees. You will have a better relationship with the people around you, especially the people that care about you and you care about them, with this approach right here. Okay, so a question that often comes up when I tell this story is, how do I bring myself back? I'm in the yellow. I can feel myself getting out of control. How do I bring myself back to the green? Okay, well, I think this answer differs a little bit for everybody. I'm going to tell you how I did it. Okay, so what I did was, when I was on the field, but for me, it was always when I was in the field is when I felt myself going, because I could take a bad at bat and I was going to carry that into the field with me, right? If I made a bad play in the field, of course, I'm already in the field, right? So here's what my routine was, and I'll tell you what my routine is today. So my routine was, when I felt that, I could take my glove off, and when my glove was off, there were no rules. I could cuss, I could yell at myself, I could, punch myself in the hand, I could kick the dirt, I could do whatever I wanted to. When that glove was off, I could mother F and son of a, and just like, oh, get it out. But the second that glove went on, it was done. It was behind me. It was over. There's nothing I can do about it. Deep breath in, out, it's over. And the breathing technique that for every reason worked for me is I breathe through my nose for 6 seconds. Okay, 6 seconds is a long time if you've never tried it. And then slowly exhaled, and it was done. Glove went back on, it's behind me, move forward. I could bring myself back into the green almost every single time by doing that right there. Okay, so now what do I do, right? So a lot of times when you talk to you about what you do, you train dogs, oh my gosh, you must have the most patience in the world, blah, 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 blah. And I feel like I do a very good job, but I'm also human. And these dogs are going to get with you. Some dogs more than others, right? But it is going to be frustrating. Okay, so dog is frustrating me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can feel that this is starting to fluster me. I put the dog away, take my hat off. Normally, I'm never to the point that I'm having to do the stuff that I was doing when I was in the heat of the game, right? But I just take my hat off. That's my, okay, what can I do to get him over this? Blah, 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 blah. Talk to myself. Okay, hat's back on. Deep breath. It's done. Normally what I'll do then is I'll work with the other dogs and then come back to that dog. That just gives me that much more time to remove myself, from that situation. This is how I have found in a training session that I can get I can get over things that much quicker, and I don't allow my emotions to get into play, because I promise you, dogs are going to read that you're in the yellow probably before you are. And if you're in the red, most dogs are just flat out going to shut down on you. You ever had your dog that when something is going on and you're getting mad, your dog just runs back to you, maybe tail between the legs, maybe head down a little bit, just comes to your side and just sits there? It's because they're reading where you are on that stoplight. And they don't know what they're doing or what they can do to make you happy. But they just know, if I can be by your side, that this is usually a place that you like me to be. They're trying in every way that they can to make you happy. Now, sometimes if our emotions are out of control, we can't even see that. So, emotions, okay? On a hunt, okay? On a hunt, which this is supposed to be the most fun that a dog has. Maybe that first hunt went great. You go on the second hunt, right? Second hunt starts off great. And then all of a sudden, the dog breaks. You're like, what the heck? Okay. Now you're watching. Now you hold on to the dog. You're making a correction when need be. And then all of a sudden, they don't want to enter the water where they should. They want to run around the bank. You're like, what the heck? So then you call them back, right? And you feel yourself like through a hunt, you can use the same stoplight. Okay. Don't allow yourself to get into the red. Okay. I have heard from a lot of people, especially, they're just certain, and you know who you are if you're honest with yourself. But there are certain people, and there are certain trainers out there that are exactly this way too, that they cannot control their emotions. I heard a story not too long ago that these guys were hunting with somebody, and dog broke. They didn't have a collar, so they get out there. Well, the walk out there, I promise you're spiraling from green to red very, very quickly on a break in front of people. A dog that's supposed to be really good. There's no other way to correct him. Go out there, and what I was told was they grabbed the dog, they carried the dog back, they literally threw the dog back in the blind, and they smacked the dog. Where in the world do you think that is a great way to correct the dog? How do you think that solves the problem in any way? Your emotions. You wouldn't have done that if you were in the green. Right? So, my challenge to you today is to think about this and think about where this can be applied in your life. If you would like, send me a message. You can shoot me an email, josh@riverstonekennels.com. You can shoot me a message on Instagram, Josh_Miller_2. Send me a message. I will send you the same photo that I have taped in my trailer door that I look at in that stoplight. Post it at your desk, post it in your garage, post it on your front door as you go out, whatever, let it smack you in the face. Remind yourself of this every day. Every day, every training session, every, you name it, every hunt. It's a great way to break things down into manageable bites. I promise, this is self-growth right here. For me, it was huge. It was huge. Still used it today. So, please let me know what you guys think of that. I'd love feedback on that. It was incredibly impactful for me. I'd love to know if this impacted you too. So shoot me a message. Thank you guys so much for spending the last 40-some minutes with me today. And we probably going to get another couple Wisconsin hunts in this weekend and next week, and then it'll be back to North Dakota. So stay tuned. A lot of good stuff coming up. Have a great week. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes, and a special thank you to Eukanuba, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.